One of the questions I'm asked is how often a board should meet. It's a good question because every board meeting comes at some sort of cost, and that's a cost in terms of management and board time in preparing for and attending to the meeting. So what are some of the key factors that are useful to inform frequency of board meeting? I think there's probably two things that we really need to take into account. The first one is the board's annual work plan. So at the beginning of the year, the chair and company secretary will typically sit down and look at all of the standard activities that the board's got to engage in and make decisions on throughout the year. So there's a pretty good starting point for when, at what points and how often the board should meet. The second overriding factor is directors need to fulfil their duty of care and diligence. And that means they need to get sufficient information and have sufficient opportunity to oversee company performance. So I often get concerned when I see really active organisations have boards that are only meeting, say, quarterly or even less frequently per annum. How is it that you can really show as a director that you've demonstrated that sufficient rigour around your due care and diligence duties? There's probably also a couple of signs that show that boards aren't meeting frequently enough. And the first one is if the board's got to have a lot of circular resolutions or call meetings on short notice. Now, sometimes that's unavoidable. There might be a crisis or some information that has come to hand on a critical matter, and timing means that there needs to be an urgent board meeting. But if the board's doing circular resolutions and having out-of-session meetings on more routine matters, then perhaps that meeting frequency is not quite right. The other factor that often leads to a question about whether the board's meeting frequently enough is directors becoming disengaged with the business. And of course that can be a downward spiral because it can mean that there's a poor dynamic forming in the board and that the board collectively is not doing a good job in terms of overseeing performance. A related issue that's come up over the last couple of years is actually how a board should meet. At the beginning of the pandemic, a number of directors that I spoke to were really happy about the fact that they didn't have to do so much travel and saw the great efficiency in virtual meetings. A couple of years on though, a lot of the feedback that I'm getting is that boards can't wait to meet face to face, and that information that you get around the board meeting and spending time with your fellow directors and executive managers is just as critical in some cases as the meeting itself. So I think what we're likely to see throughout the next year or two is boards coming together and meeting face to face where they can, and maybe board committees meeting more regularly virtually for those efficiency reasons. So hopefully that's given some good insight into meeting frequency and some of the driving factors.